Hello everybody, this is DeanoGTO, and today we're looking at the 9.20 test server for World of Tanks, and I'm going to be focusing today on the new Chinese tank destroyers. And let me just say, just to start off with, I like the Tier 10, which is something I never expected to say. I actually kind of like this vehicle. I think it's actually kind of fun to play. God damn, I've missed using the big, gigantic, ridiculous tank destroyer guns at the high tiers. I haven't used one of these gigantic ass guns in a long time, and it's actually making me want to go back and try and get the T124. Like that's like it's been so long since I've really used a gun like that in the game that this using this gun here was just so much fun. It really was. I enjoyed the hell out of every moment using this gun, and also it's actually really interesting because like this gun, it feels like it has a really slow shell velocity, so it's really interesting to like try and learn like the shell speed because this tank is built to be medium to close range. Long range is not a good idea in this tank because of the shell velocity and the dispersion. The aiming time is amazing, so it is built for close range brawling, and I love how they've done this with this tank. Like it seems so well built. And honestly, if they want people to play close range, reduce the shell velocity on the tanks because trying to learn the lead on this tank has taken a long. It's taken me like 10 or 15 games because it's been so long since I've used a gun like this here that has such a slow, like, arcing shell that it's actually taken me a long time to get used to it. And honestly, if they want people to stop camping and sitting at the back, this is probably the way to do it. Just reduce the shell velocity, and like only the tanks that are built for sniping will have fast shell velocities. That's actually not a bad idea, honestly. At least in my mind, it isn't. But yeah, summary of the tier 10. The tier 10 is pretty decent mobility wise. It's not the fastest thing in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but it's okay, especially in comparison to the tier 9. Tier 9 feels really slow. I'm actually just going to double check that I'm not an idiot. Yeah, I'm not an idiot. Um, so yeah, this thing here feels reasonably well. Like it feels reasonably good in terms of its overall mobility, and it feels like it can get around the map all right. Its top speed's kind of limited at 38. The specific power that looks really bad, but it feels faster than you would expect. Like it just feels like it's able to get around the map nicely. And overall, I actually had fun driving this thing. The only downside to this tank is that it's on the test server right now, and the test server literally everybody in the Granny Ferris premium rounds. So yeah, the armor is not really it's not really possible to really fully utilize the armor on the test server. So on the live server, I have a feeling this thing could be pretty damn good, but on the test server, it's kind of difficult to use. And something I should just point out: the casement, it's 230 millimeters thick up here, 100 down here, 120 down here. This area here, like if you're just aiming like this has like 280 to 290 effective armor. This is really powerful armor, and that allows it to just tank hits really nicely. And 2100 health is no joke. I mean, that this thing is built to be this thing is either built to be defensive or it's built to be an aggressive tank destroyer. Like honestly, I think it's going to be better at the defensive role, like finding a good spot and just holding that position and not letting anyone through it. But I think it's also going to be very good at playing aggressive later in the game. You don't want to be too aggressive too early in the game because you need your health later on in the game because you do have this weaker zone down here. This entire zone down here is pretty damn weak. But yeah, time to go on to the tier 9. But I should just point out, this is like one of the few vehicles in this line that actually has a decent traverse speed above tier 8. Like tier 8 and 9 have terrible traverse speeds. This is the only one that gets a decent traverse speed. And it also gets 38 km/h top speed, 16 reverse speed. So yeah, let's move on to the tier 9. So the tier 9. The tier 9 I've driven quite a lot, and this thing is a slug. It feels so goddamn slow. Like even though the specific power is technically worse than the tier 10, it feels so slow. It feels unbelievably slow. It struggles so much with its power to weight ratio. Like it just feels so goddamn slow. It just struggles to get around the map. It really, really does. Like it just, I've got all exactly the same like perks and like crew skills and stuff on. I've got the exact same equipment, but like honestly, if there was one thing they were going to change on this vehicle, and by the way, there's a huge weakness with this vehicle, which means you cannot angle it at all. But I'll get into that in a second. Um, like I wish that this thing had a bit more engine power because it feels so goddamn sluggish. And something I should just point out, even with this thing here, this is 230, this is 100, this is 120. The entire side armor is 80. Like this entire upper casement's 80 millimeters, but I didn't really look at the lower side armor because nobody in the right mind is going to shoot the lower side armor if they can shoot the upper side armor, because that's just got like no sloping on it whatsoever. Or like, well, it's got like 5 degrees of sloping or some shit on it. And it's just going to be easy penetration. Hell, like some guns with HE will be able to pen this reliably. So, yeah. Just figured I would point that out. And it's the same story with this thing here. This thing here has 80 here, 80 here. So yeah, that's very weak side armor on the casement area. But there's a gigantic weakness on this tank, which I found thanks to a super Pershing shooting me constantly in it, and it was pissing me off because he was firing AP rounds and pinning me in this area, and I was like, where the hell is he shooting me? You cannot see my lower plate. He was shooting me here, right here. This area here has 100 armor. So even though this area here is 200, this area here is 200, and this area here is 200, this area is 100. In other words, this area is completely worthless and has no effective armor whatsoever. So if you're driving this tank, it's front forward at all times. If you angle this tank, you're going to get your ass handed to you, because you're going to take a shit ton of damage. And actually, I'm just going to change the gun and see if this one changes anything about that. Nope, it does not. So it changes the mantlet shape. It does not change the actual area behind the mantlet. So yeah, this is a gigantic weakness to this tank, and it just means that this thing, you cannot angle it at all. It's front towards the enemy at all times. If you angle it all, you're gonna get your ass handed to you. The good thing is, like, even though these areas here 80 and 80, because they're so well sloped, they're pretty much auto bounces. This thing's armor, I feel like, had the potential to be very, very good, but I feel like it's kind of been failed by its like this area here. I'm trying to think like what the area that pokes out for the gun to be mounted. I feel like it's just been let down by this area here. If this area here wasn't so bad, this I feel like would have really, really solid armor. But because of this area here, it just nerfs the tank so badly. It's annoying, but yeah. It has the same 100 millimeter armor here, but the difference between this and this, as you can probably see, is the sloping. So whereas on this tank, that is an auto bounce because it's so well sloped, on this tank, ironically, it's not. So even though this tank is a higher tier, because it's 100 millimeters and it's less well sloped, this bit here is like 200 effective. On this thing here, it's an auto bounce. Like, I suppose it can makes up for it, but it really doesn't, because it just means you cannot angle this tank at all. So yeah, that's my like rough assessment of the armor of this tank. So in terms of guns, actually I should just like go over both these tanks at once. So guns, this gun is fun to use on this tank because it has an okay rate of fire and it has a really quick aiming time for this kind of caliber of gun, which is honestly what's probably it's honestly that's probably what I like so much about this tank, because the aiming time is so quick. You're able to just go point blank range and just snapshot someone in the face and fall back, which is something you can't do with other guns of this type. This thing has the same kind of ability, except it's a slower platform with worse accuracy and worse overall rate of fire as well. So honestly, I would take a rate of fire nerf on this thing, like to maybe 15.2, 15.4, 5 seconds, just to like increase this armor here, just to make this less of a weak point. Like, and also like just maybe increase the engine power by like 50, just to like make it a little bit more mobile. Because right now, like I think its top speed is like 30. I don't think it can hit 35 km/h top speed. It just feels so goddamn sluggish, and the traverse speed's awful. Like it seriously, everything can outmaneuver this thing. I'm not even joking about that there. And this is with clutch braking and brothers in arms and vents. So yeah, that should give you an idea of how poor this traverse speed is. And it does at least have a decent reverse speed at 16. 16 is pretty decent for reverse speed. 35 is kind of crap though, kind of going forward, but it doesn't really matter too much considering it struggles so much to actually hit that top speed. But for the most part, it's still kind of fun to drive because it still has that massive gun. It also has the other gun option in the form of this 130mm gun, which has 270 pen and pretty much identical DPM. So it's pretty much a choice between consistency and accuracy and all that stuff, and faster rate of fire, or big derpy gun with less consistency. But both of them have pretty much identical DPMs, so it really just is player choice. On to the tier 8. So the tier 8 I view as the main weak link because, well, I'll just show you what I mean. This area here is 100mm, like this entire upper front plate zone is 100mm. So this is a gigantic weak point. It's got like 170, 180mm effective armor, which is crap. And the lower plate's 120mm. The upper area here, the casement, is 180mm. The 180mm, even though it's kind of sloped and it's kind of angled, this only has like 210 effective armor, which versus tier 8s is not going to do shit. It's going to work versus some tier 7s, but versus tier 8s, this armor is not going to work at all. And this armor here is going to be an easy penetration even for tier 6, even for some tier 6s and tier 7s. So yeah, this thing has no effective armor at all, and this thing really does need to remain at range if you can, which is kind of annoying because it's slow. Yeah, this thing I feel like is just going to be the awkward piece of shit for this line, but it does have an upside in the form of this gun. This gun is extremely powerful. It's the same gun that I just showcased on this gun here. So it's extremely powerful because it's very Jagdtiger-like. It has 560 alpha per shot, 271 penetration, and like in comparison, it only has like a 0.7 second worse rate of fire than the tier 9. But the limitation of this tank is its ammo capacity with this gun. It has 25 shots, which is pretty lackluster, and honestly, I didn't even bother really looking at the side armor and stuff on this tank because the front armor is worthless. I can't expect the side armor to be any good either. Plus, tank destroyer side armor doesn't really matter too much. Tank destroyers it just means like you can't side scrape in tank destroyers anyway outside the Panzer E100 or the Death Star. So yeah, and this thing I believe has the best reverse speed of all the higher tiered ones, higher tiered tank destroyers. So I suppose that's pretty decent at least. But yeah, overall, this thing's going to just be awkward. It has to stay at range. You cannot get close with this tank. If you get close with this tank, you're probably going to get your ass handed to you because you have no armor, your traverse speed's crap, and your gun, even though it's relatively quick firing and very, very powerful in terms of like alpha damage and penetration, it's just not going to be able to respond quick enough, and the armor's not going to be able to take any hits. And plus, you only have 1,000 health. And this is the biggest, actually, this is something I just want to point out. This is the biggest jump in health I have ever seen in this game. Watch this. 1,000 health at tier 8. 1,800 health at tier 9. And at tier 10, 2,100. That is the biggest jump in health I have ever seen. 800 health just going up one tier. That is mental. That's pretty much adding the health of tier 6 on top of the tier 8. Like that's mental. That's nearly doubling the health of the tier 8 when you go to tier 9. It's insane. But yeah, the gun is probably going to be the only saving grace of this tank. Otherwise, this tank would be completely worthless. And I should just quickly just look at the grinding gun. This is basically the 113's top or the 113 gun. It's okay, but there's no real advantage this gun has over the top gun, except ammo capacity. Like this carries 30 rounds, this carries 25. But I think this gun here probably has overall the better damage potential overall because it has an extra 120 alpha per shot. And it actually has higher DPM than the 122. It has better accuracy than the 122 as well, and better penetration. So this 130mm is clearly the best gun for this tank, and this thing is basically, in my mind, just going to be back of the map, pretty much sniper, because if you get close, you're going to get your ass handed to you. That's just the way I see this tank going. in a close range fight because this thing will just get slaughtered. It's insane. But yeah, let's get to the tier 7. Tier 7 is microscopic. Look how small it is. It's such a small target. It has 70 front armor, so this thing has pretty much no armor to speak of. And that's honestly the trend for this line up until tier 9. This line up until tier 9 has no real effective armor. The tier 8 tries to have effective armor, but doesn't really succeed. The tier 7 like 70 millimeters armor, I was initially thinking because this thing's so small, maybe it could be like a mini SU 122-44, but because the armor is so thin, it doesn't have the effectiveness to actually bounce equal tier targets or equal tier guns. Like I think the maximum thickness I was able to get out of this armor was like 155, and that was me like checking it in Tanks GG. So yeah, the armor is not really going to hold up versus anything in this tank. So let's just focus on like the other details. So this is the not technically the top gun. I have the 100mm mounted right now just to show you. Oh, and by the way, this all these tanks, the tier 10, tier 9, tier 8, all have 6 degrees of gun depression, and I think all of the Chinese tank destroyers tier 6 and up, minimum tier 6 and up, have 12 degrees of traverse on the guns. They all have very consistent traverse speeds. Or no, not traverse speeds, traverse range. So yeah, this gun here has extremely fast aiming time, really good accuracy, really good, well overall like really good rate of fire. I mean it has less than 6 second reload with 190 pen on a tier 7 tank destroyer. This is a really solid tank destroyer gun for tier 7. I mean it just seems like an overall really solid gun. So you do have another gun option though in the form of this 122mm gun. This has 182 pen, 390 alpha, 2.56 second aiming time, and 0.38 accuracy. It does have a way better damage per minute than the other gun, but the problem I see with this gun is, well, I don't think it's going to have the consistency of the 100mm. So the effective DPM of the 100mm could potentially be better than the 122. I honestly suspect that a lot of people may just keep using this 100mm because it just seems to be the more consistent gun. Like that seems to be like the traits for the most part of the Chinese tank destroyer line. Most of them have pretty consistent guns up until tier up until tier 9, in which case like the 152mm gun is kind of derpy, but you also have the option of the other gun. Like actually honestly think about it, the tier 7 and tier 9 are pretty comparable. Both of them have the option of either a really derpy gun or a really consistent gun, so yeah, kind of comparable in that respect. I kind of wish that this thing had the option of like maybe 152 with like 250 pen or something like that there, just to give you another option. Also, like if I was changing this thing, I would buff its armor significantly. I would make this 200. I would make this thing maybe 210, and have it cover this area here as well. And maybe like make this area here 100, this area 100, but the rest of it 80, 80, and do the exact same on this thing here. Make this potentially like 240, and maybe make this area here like 150 because this area is ultra weak. It really is so weak because everything seems to pen this area. It doesn't matter where in this area it hits, it just seems to pen. And leave the lower plate the way it is because it needs to have a weakness. So yeah, let's go back to the tier 7. So the tier 7, it has, because this is such a fragile vehicle, I feel like the 100mm is probably the best gun option because, well, you don't really want to be at close range, even though this thing is a very small target, and this thing is going to be a nightmare for Japanese heavies, because all you need to do is get to close range with a Japanese heavy, and the Japanese heavy won't be able to point this gun at you because you're such a small target. It's incredible how small this vehicle is, and actually, you know what? Let's just see here, tier 7. Let's just see the comparison between this and the E25. That's remarkably close. That's a lot closer than I was actually guessing. And this thing uses a 122mm gun. That is significantly closer size-wise than I was expecting. Holy crap. This thing is nearly like a TAC-3 E25. It's kind of mental, actually. But yeah. So the 122mm gun could be very difficult to use because to me it seems like more of a close range gun than the 100mm. Like the 100mm is versatile. It can be used close range, medium range, or long range. This gun seems like a medium to long range gun, and that playstyle could be detrimental to your overall playstyle in this vehicle because you only have 800 health. So you could probably die very quickly if you make any kind of mistake when using the 122, whereas the 100mm gives you a bit of wiggle room. So yeah, that's my general thoughts on like the tier 7. So tier 6 is the last one I'm going to look at, and this what I'm about to say for the tier 6 pretty much sums up all of the tanks previous. Stay at long range, they have fast firing guns, they have fast aiming times, and they have decent penetration for their tier. That sums up all the vehicles prior to this one, including this tank itself. Like this tank here in particular has a very, very good gun for its tier. Like this 100mm gun has 181 pen, 0.36 accuracy, 2-second aiming time, and 7.5 rate of fire. This gun is honestly like really, really comparable to the T25/2's gun, which is a tier 7 tank destroyer. This thing has 11 more pen, and it also has the same accuracy. Your aim times is a tiny bit worse. It has more damage per shot, 10 extra damage per shot, and it also has 11 more penetration with just only a little bit worse rate of fire. So this gun is really comparable to a tier 7 tank destroyer's gun. Granted, that tier 7 tank destroyer is not the greatest tank destroyer in the game, but that just gives you perspective. Sorry, I accidentally paused it. So I'm going to have to let this run for like another 10 seconds after it. So that just gives it the perspective on like what the actual on like the general like idea of like how good this gun is on this tank. Like a tank at tier higher doesn't have a gun quite as good as this one. So yeah. And that's for the most part pretty true of the rest of the vehicles in the tree. Like I feel like this one's probably going to be the best of that sort of playstyle. Because it's just such a small vehicle, even though it has literally no armor whatsoever to speak of, because it's only 35mm and nothing will ever bounce off that. So, yeah, I can't really think of anything else I really need to go over in regards to the Chinese tank destroyers. Overall, I think the high tier ones could have the potential to be a lot of fun. But the tier 9 is just too sluggish, and the tier 8 doesn't have the armor. Like the tier 9, honestly, it feels so goddamn slow. I can't even put it into words. The tier 10 feels a lot more mobile than you would guess from like looking at the stats of it. And honestly, I had a lot of fun driving the tier 10. I'm honestly thinking I'm going to start going for other tank destroyers in the game because well, that tank just seemed like fun to play. And honestly, the only real tank destroyer I really played for a long time was the Panzer 100 tank. It's the only tank destroyer I ever unlocked at tier 10. But I feel like the WZ-111 or 113G is probably going to be a tank destroyer I actually go for. But yeah, the line from tier 1 to tier 7 is looking pretty good. Tier 8 and 9 is a little bit dodgy, and I feel like a little bit of work may need to be done on them. But tier 10, I think it's going to be a decent machine. Just has a couple weaknesses that are kind of annoying, but yeah, overall, I like the gun a lot. I was having fun driving it, so. But yeah, that wasn't test server. My opinion could change, and things could change in the future in regards to those vehicles. So yeah. As of this version in the test server, I think the tier 10 is good. Tier 8 and 9, I think need a little bit of work done to them, and then all the others seem to be okay for their tiers. So yeah. Let me know what you guys think of the Chinese tank destroyers in the comment section below. Have you played them much? I've had a bunch of games in tier 9, a bunch of games in tier 10, and that's where I've like developed my opinions from. And yeah, let me know what you think of them. Are you going to grind them when they get to the live server, or are they tanks you're just going to just completely skip over and never bother to grind? I'll be curious to hear like the responses in the comment section because well, I'm not really sure what the actual overall thoughts are of the Chinese tank destroyers are in the game, or well, what the overall thoughts are in the community on these vehicles. Because like I feel like they could be potentially very good, but they also have some limitations. So yeah. Leave your comments in the comment section below, and thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.